When my party members got up and cheered and gave a standing ovation to Heather McPherson and the NDP, I started reflecting as to whether or not I belonged.
That's a short clip of Anthony Housefather yesterday explaining why he is now thinking about reflecting on his future as a Liberal member, a federal Liberal member. Anthony Housefather is on the line. Anthony, thanks for being here.
Oh, always, Aaron.
So look, there's a lot to cover here. I think for people who maybe are not fully caught up on the story, what was it in this that caused you to say, I heard the little explanation here. It was not the motion itself, because we understand that was watered down considerably from the original motion. So what was it that broke the camel's back, if you will, here?
Well, I mean, we're going to start from the fact that this was an NDP Opposition Day motion that was completely anti-Israel. It was creating equivalencies between Israel and the terrorist organization Hamas. It was completely unreflective of Canada's foreign policy. And the normal course would be the government would have voted it down. And the government position would have been no, and the Prime Minister and Cabinet would have just voted no. And we wouldn't have had any discussions with the NDP. And so that was obviously my recommendation, that we should just vote it down. It's what I forcefully advocated for. And for some reason, there was this decision to start negotiating amendments with the NDP that were then presented with nobody having seen them until 5 minutes before the vote was called, which was a terribly inappropriate process. And you don't write foreign policy in that way. You don't use the NDP's clearly biased Opposition Day motion. And you can put, Aaron, what I would say is you can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. No matter how much you rewrite this, there's still a lot in there that's deeply problematic in terms of the verbiage, in terms of the real accusatory language about Israel, and about the fact that even non-lethal weapons now seem to not be allowed to be sent to Israel, even though we only symbolically send about $43 million of weapons over a period of months, and they're non-lethal weapons, and all that we do is grant permits for them. It seems that won't be allowed, and Israel's at war. So Hamas and Hezbollah will keep being armed by Iran and fire missiles into Israel. But if Canadian logic was then applied to the world, Israel would never be able to get any weapons or any parts to be able to defend itself. And I can go into many parts of this motion, even as amended, that I think many of us would have problems with. But the real issue is Israel's supposed to be a friend and ally. This motion, wasn't the way you treat a friend and ally. And in the end, in 2015, Aaron, I'll end with this. I know I've been long. The Prime Minister came to my riding, and he promised my electors, while I was standing next to him, that we would have no daylight between ourselves and the Conservatives other than Israel wouldn't be used as a wedge issue to divide Jewish Canadians, which is something I've always agreed with. And I think we followed that for the first 8 years that I've been a member of Parliament. But certainly over the last couple of months, that has not been the case. And now this motion puts the Liberal position tied to the NDP as opposed to being with the Conservatives. So clearly there's now a daylight between our position on Israel and what we'd promised. And I feel really this is very problematic for me. I think with the rising tide of anti-Semitism, this is an existential issue for Jewish Canadians and for many Canadians who are not Jewish, who are proud of our relationship with Israel. And I really have to think about whether I fit anymore in the caucus.
So I will ask a couple of questions. Number one, people might have thought this was symbolic in terms of going along with the NDP because the government is trying to curry favor with them. We know now, we found out today, there's a non-confidence motion being brought forward. But this is not symbolic. I heard Melanie Joly say, in fact, that the government is prepared to act on this.
Well, when you pass something by the House, I mean, whether it's binding on the government or not, especially if the government votes for it, there's real significance to it. And I heard her say that too. So again, to me, this was the wrong move. It was a slap in the face to an ally at the time, that they're at war. Whether you like the Netanyahu government or not, whether you agree with how Israel's prosecuting the war or not, and it's perfectly fair to have questions about those things because everybody sees the pictures of people in Gaza and the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding there. This resolution came from a bad place. And there's nothing that we could do to fix it adequately to make it be in a good place. And it's not the way you write foreign policy. And I was so deeply disappointed in what happened. And then, Aaron, you asked me what the straw that broke the camel's back was. Although there was, I would have had a reflection regardless, was the fact that, Minister Joly got up and led a standing ovation for Heather McPherson, who was the NDP mover of this motion. And it was very problematic for me.
Have you spoken to the Prime Minister? Has he spoken to you since this happened?
No, we had a meeting on Monday. We met before and had a very long and very frank conversation, and we had another one on the weekend before, but I haven't had a meeting with him since. I have met with many others, but not with him.
Were you in caucus today?
I chose not to go to caucus today. I've been doing my work. I've been going to committees. I've been doing my House duty. I've been doing all my meetings. I've been doing my parliamentary secretary work. I'm doing all my work. But I thought it would send the wrong message for me to go to caucus today while I'm in reflection, so I didn't go.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you're in reflection now. The obvious question is, how long do you anticipate being in reflection, if you can put a timeline on it? And what will it take for you to decide what your next move is going to be?
It's a great question. The next election is 18 months from now, and I'm not saying I'm going to take 18 months. I'm not even going to say I'm going to take a month, but I'm certainly going to take time to hear from my constituents. I've heard from thousands of them over the last couple of days. My inbox is bombarded with emails, and I'm reading each and every one of them. Even if I don't have, I normally answer every email personally. I may not have the ability to, given the incredible volume, but I'm listening, and I appreciate the lovely words of encouragement that I've gotten from constituents. And I'd heard, Aaron, if you give me an opportunity, Tom Mulcair surmising yesterday about what this meant.
Anthony, let me stop you. I want people to hear this because I know you're bothered by this. The question then is, depending on what you actually end up deciding, that riding, Mount Royal, has been a Liberal stronghold forever. Pierre Trudeau held that riding, of course, when he was Prime Minister. Here's what Tom Mulcair said yesterday, wondering out loud, I guess, what might happen next.
Pierre Poilievre has been 3 times to different synagogues in Anthony Housefather's riding over the past few months. That's not an accident. It's because Poilievre thinks he can take that riding from Housefather. So is Housefather saying, I'm going to hang up my skates and finish off this term and be done with federal politics because he doesn't want to face that? Is that part of his thinking? I don't know.
Is it?
Definitely not part of my thinking. Number one, I think the important thing is for my constituents, I'm absolutely staying a member of Parliament. I'm absolutely running in the next election. I am confident with whatever decision I make, my constituents will support me, and that I will be reelected. So that is not part of the equation at all. I am only reflecting because of what happened, because of where I see my caucus going and the changes that have been made. And I think, like many of us Montrealers, Aaron, we reflexively joined the Liberal Party because we thought they would protect our rights as English-speaking Montrealers, and for me and you as Jews, because that was who protected minority rights in Quebec. And I think for a generation or more, English-speaking Quebecers have by and large voted for the Liberal Party. And I think what happened for me last year with the language bill, where I was left on my own, and this year, on this, where again I represent a community that I think has been, impacted significantly by this decision, I have to really contemplate. And I think a lot of people in my riding and probably a lot of your listeners in other ridings are contemplating, do we belong where we thought we belonged anymore? So I think the issue, my reflection, is not only my reflection, it's a reflection of a much broader group of people. And I wanted to be public about it because I know I'm not the only one that is struggling with this, that has always voted Liberal, that's always been a Liberal, and is now confused. And so I thought that sharing that with other people that I'm also struggling would actually help them in understanding. And I always try to be a politician that's open and honest, and I'm my real self, which is I think why people like having me as a politician, because I'm not a politician. I wanted to be honest about it.
So you're struggling with this now, and possibly you may be right. Others perhaps in the city are struggling with that same question as to, is this the same Liberal Party that I always thought would represent me? I get that. And you brought up the language issue. You spoke of then as well. I'm wondering, though, can someone who's been a lifelong Liberal, and I believe you've been since you were a teenager, right?
Yep.
You've been a Liberal supporter. Can someone like that just simply walk across the aisle and say, well, now I'm a Conservative because I don't believe in this Liberal Party anymore?
Well, that's what I have to think about, right? I mean, I've always been somebody in the center. I've neither been to the left nor to the right. I'm socially liberal. I'm fiscally conservative, generally. It has been my philosophical viewpoint. And so I never agreed with any party all the time. By and large, I've generally agreed with liberal principles, which is why I've always been a liberal. But right now, this was, I guess, a sharp. Last year was one. This year is a second one. But the difference with last year was, right, I had nowhere to go or to think about going because it wasn't just the Liberals. It was everybody else that didn't support us. And this year, there is another party that on this issue is much closer to my ideology. So it would be a disservice to myself and to others if I didn't at least consider the possibility, of some other option. And I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I wanted to be honest that I'm having these reflections and that I'm torn because, of course, there's loyalty, there's friendship, there's all kinds of things when you've been with a group of people for a long time. But this was sort of a reminder to me that maybe it's the party's changed and I'm no longer fit, and that's what I need to figure out.
You said you've heard from constituents. We asked this question earlier in the show today. There's a lot of support out there for you, I can tell you, at least from our callers. What are those people? You say you read your emails, and if you got hundreds or thousands, I know you can't necessarily have read them all, but what is the main takeaway? Is there a consensus? What are you hearing from your constituents?
So I'd rather not share that, if that's okay. I think there is a general consensus. From the vast majority of people that have reached out. One of the things that I found incredibly gratifying was a very considerable percentage said, no matter what you do, we're with you, which I thought was great. But there was a considerable expression of what they thought I should do. And I'll be glad to share with you all of the thoughts and all of the reflections when I finish and I have a decision.
Okay, I have one question. Question and a half left. Has anyone from the Conservative Party approached you already?
So, I think it would be a lie to say that I haven't been approached because, of course, conservatives, there are many conservatives who I'm great friends with, and they've, for a long time before I was ready to even ever consider that would ever happen, have, suggested stuff. So, it would be sure. People have suggested stuff.
No, but I mean now, after this happened, to say, you know what, you're more than welcome here?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sure. Lots of people have. Like again, this is a big decision, but I felt a lot of love from my colleagues after I expressed my feelings, and I feel a lot of love from people who want to change my mind and bring me somewhere else. And I really want to think about this because I want to do the right thing, not only for me but for my residents who, and I just on the Jewish side, and I am a Jew. Like I represent everybody, but I come from the Jewish community, so I feel the pain of my constituents, and I see the pain that so many of them are right now experiencing on this issue and what happened on the vote on Monday. And I really take that to great heart.
Last question, I'll let you go. Would any of this, I know this is kind of a hypothetical, Anthony, would it make a difference to you now if after the fact the Prime Minister came to you and said, let's sit down and talk about this?
Well, we have sat down and talked.
After the fact.
I'm sure I will have another conversation with him, but I don't think because I know now all the facts and all that happened. I don't think that talking to him is the answer anymore, because to be honest, it's not necessarily the Prime Minister. It's a question of the caucus, of where we're going, the direction, and so I think I'm pretty well aware. I have my facts in my head, and now I just need to think about what makes me the most comfortable, and by extension, what would make my electors the most comfortable. And I know not everybody's going to agree, and there's going to be divisions, and but I have to be like, one of the things. The only thing, Aaron, that I've always said is I have to be able to look myself in the mirror, and I have to be comfortable with what I say and what I do and how I vote and where I am, and I've got to be able to do that. And right now, I don't know what will make me the most comfortable look in the mirror, and hopefully soon I'll know.
Anthony, as always, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much. Same to you, Aaron.